Hey, everybody, and welcome back to Speechless. I am your host, Kev Phares, 23-year-old conservative college graduate, still an activist, still doing work in politics, and planning to go to law school, doing my applications as we speak next fall. But also keeping up with the radio side of things. And not only am I on the radio, but these are pre-recorded shows now. And if you want to make sure you can catch them live and engage with a phenomenal and robust community of speechless warriors, go to my YouTube channel or any of my platforms, Rumble, Twitch, Facebook, and just look up. All you got to do is Google Speechless with Kev, and you will be able to see me and my face that is made for radio, but my mom still tells me it's beautiful. You can see it in my home studio with a beautiful new background talking about all these fun topics. So make sure you go check that out, everybody. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, comment, and all that fun stuff. Definitely share it. Ring that notification bell to all. Get your friends to watch. Because I have a lot of fun and exciting content. And this next story is something I have been very passionate about for a while. So let's talk about it a little bit here. I'm going to get comfortable. So, your kids probably go to school, your grandkids maybe. They got these holiday parties. Yeah, they're holiday parties. When I was a kid, they were Christmas parties. But now they're holiday parties. And they're to be more inclusive. Any mention of Christ or Christmas is problematic. Even Hanukkah is only represented when people are not supporting terrorism against the Jewish people. But there is one holiday that has always baffled me because I hear it. And white people have always told me that I mustn't question it because it is culturally significant. And it would be racist to question it due to its African roots. In fact, I've even had family members tell me that you need to be respectful and tolerant of this one specific holiday because you never know who might celebrate it. And you never know how they see its cultural significance. The holiday I'm talking about is Kwanzaa. Kwanzaa, which has been traditionally seen as a holiday for Black people around Christmas time. But what does it really mean? Where did it come from? What is its quote-unquote cultural significance? And is it real? Short answer, no. Kwanzaa is a fake holiday. Nobody really celebrates it. And it didn't exist until the 1960s. Let's break this down. From the National Museum of African American History and Culture, it was created in 1966 by a guy named Ron Karenga. Kwanzaa is an African American and Pan-African holiday that celebrates history, values, family, community, and culture. The ideas and concepts of Kwanzaa are expressed in the Swahili language, which is one of the most widely spoken languages in Africa. But who was Kwanzaa's founder? Dr. Ron Karenga. Well, he was a professor of African studies at California State University. No, he's not an African native or immigrant. He was a professor of African studies at California State University in Long Beach. He was the holder of 2 PhDs. And in fact, he was born in 1941 in Parsonsburg, Maryland. In Parsonsburg, Maryland is where Ron Karenga was born. And from the Federalist, they also identify him as the founder of the United Slaves, a violent rival organization to the Black Panthers, which created the holiday for Black Americans and derived the name Kwanzaa from the Swahili phrase Matunda y Kwanza, meaning first fruits of the harvest. And that's about the extent of the deep African roots the official Kwanzaa website claims. Is its name. It's really not rooted deeply in African culture. Front Page Magazine's Paul Mushine writes that the African feast, known as Kwanzaa, really has nothing to do with Africa and everything to do with California in the 1960s. He contends that it was made up to divide Americans, not unite them. Molshine explains that the paramilitary organization Karanga ran in Los Angeles in the 1960s was involved in murder and torture. Quote, in 1967, Karanga was accused of having his thugs beat up a student who asked him an impertinent question at a college forum. In 1969, United slaves got involved in a struggle with the Black Panthers for control of the Black Studies program at UCLA. All involved carried guns on campus. The U.S. guys were quicker on the draw. They killed 2 Panthers in a shootout at the Student Center. So Karanga's group at UCLA was responsible for the killing of 2 Black Panthers. And in fact, Karanga himself, this is the guy who created Kwanzaa. Karanga himself is a convicted torturer. An excerpt from an article from the May 1971 trial of Karanga for torturing 2 members of his group states, Deborah Jones, who was once given the Swahili title of an African queen, said she and Gail Davis were whipped with an electrical cord and beaten with a karate baton after being ordered to remove their clothes. She testified that her hat, soldering iron, or that a hot soldering iron was placed in Miss Davis's mouth and placed against Miss Davis's face, and that one of her own big toes was tightened in a vice. Karanga, head of the United Slaves, also put detergent and running hoses in their mouths. Karanga, once again, the person who created Kwanzaa out of thin air, served only 4 to 5 years in state prison. Only 4 to 5 years. And that's all just about the founder. Let's get into the holiday itself. Like I said, other than having an abhorrent founder, the 7 pillars of Kwanzaa: unity, self-determination, collective work and responsibility, cooperative economics, purpose, creativity, and faith. Those are the 7 pillars. Now, let's focus on one of those specifically. We could focus on 2, but I just want to focus on one of them. Cooperative economics. The National Museum of African American History describes that one of the 7 pillars, cooperative economics, as, quote, to build and maintain our own stores, shops, and other businesses, and to profit from them together. To profit from them together. That is one of the pillars, the 7 pillars of Kwanzaa. Look, I couldn't have said it better if I was Karl Marx himself. The amount, when you read through a lot of this, because there's cooperative economics, there's also collective work and responsibility. All of it circles communist talking points. Now, I'll admit, never once in Kwanzaa doctrine, which is not very long or very thought out, does it ever explicitly say communism. But a lot of the things that it advocates for are expressly Marxist. So this holiday, Kwanzaa holiday, was built by people that hate America and seem to want to sow racial divisions and push communist rhetoric. Now, here's a clip that was posted to Twitter last year. This is just last year on Twitter. Kamala Harris posted this clip saying, "Happy Kwanzaa, America." She also included her white husband, Doug Emhoff. And so here's her Happy Kwanzaa Day message. If you're on YouTube, you can take a look and a listen. If you're just on the radio side of things, just take a listen. Here's Vice President Kamala Harris, who actually is a descendant of slave owners. And here's her Happy Kwanzaa message. Oh my God, look at that. Look at that big old smile she's got on her face. That doesn't look forced at all. Oh my gosh. All right, take a look and a listen.
Hello, everyone, and happy Kwanzaa. Doug and I send our warmest wishes to all of you this holiday season.
During Kwanzaa, we celebrate the history and heritage of the African American community and the African diaspora.
Growing up, Kwanzaa was always a special time.
Okay, real quick. That sounded like Doug was had a gun to his head. Just saying. Like if you listen, we'll go back just a little bit. Just listen. It sounds so forced out of him.
American community and the African diaspora.
Growing up, Kwanzaa was always a special time. We came together with generations of friends and family and neighbors. There were never enough chairs. So my sister and I and the other children would often sit on the floor, and together we lit the candles of the Kinara, and then the elders would talk about how Kwanzaa is a time to celebrate culture, community, and family. And they, of course, taught us about the 7 principles. My favorite principle was always the second, Kujichagulia, self-determination, the power to design your own life and determine your own future. And it is a deeply American principle, one that guides me every day as vice president.
To everyone celebrating, we hope your week is filled with love and light. From our family to yours, happy Kwanzaa.
Happy Kwanzaa. Okay. Well, first off, I'll take things that never happened for 500, Alex. Things that never happened. What's the thing that never happened? There is no way. There's no flippin' possible way, nowhere in the realm of reality that Kamala Harris celebrated Kwanzaa. At least growing up. She claimed she was like growing up Kwanzaa. No, there is no possible way that she grew up Kwanzaa as she would have you believe. Prove me wrong. I would love to see the pictures of her sitting on the floor as she claims. I would love to see those pictures. But the fact of the matter is, I probably never will, and you won't either, because they do not exist. And when I say they don't exist, I can provide some evidence too. I'm an evidence-based individual. They likely don't exist, as she, first off, was raised a Christian Baptist. And so while Kwanzaa is usually celebrated around Christmas time, I guarantee you somebody who came from a Christian Baptist household was much more keen on celebrating Christmas than Kwanzaa. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that I could have some lefties in the chat that are like, well, what if they celebrated both, Kevin, huh? Like they could celebrate Christmas morning and open up their presents and pray and go to church. And then when they come home, they celebrate Kwanzaa. Okay, you could be right. You could be right. But then take this. She was also born in 1964, which was 2 years before Kwanzaa was ever actually made up or founded. So the likelihood that she celebrated it in her childhood was minimal. Because it probably took some time after it was made up for it to become mainstream enough to where that many people would have heard about it and been a part of it. And also, I can kind of track that. I did track that, actually. If you look at Google, if you guys know Google and you look up their dictionary stuff on Google, you can actually see when words spike. Like when word usage, how often a word was used. Like there's words that were used a lot in the 1800s that are not used as much today. And there are words that were never used in the 1800s that are used a lot today. Like, I don't know, Riz. If you ever hear anybody use the word Riz, I guarantee you people weren't really using it maybe in like 1880. But today, you can riz up a girl at the bar or something. We'll talk about that one on some other episode. But that's my point. So you could track it. And so the word Kwanzaa, if you look at it, actually didn't start having any level of traction in terms of usage, according to Google, until about the early 1980s. Meaning that for it to have become more mainstream, enough to where Kamala Harris's family was more likely to actually be practicing said holiday, she would have had to have been in her teenage years, if not early 20s, before that would have happened. So her happy Kwanzaa message and her story about, oh my God, we sat on the floor because we didn't have enough chairs celebrating Kwanzaa. And my favorite pillar is Kuja Chuchahali. No. Likely all crap that some DEI expert wrote on a teleprompter for her. And if you still don't believe me, if all of that still doesn't convince you, then what about this? A survey by the National Retail Foundation discovered that only 1.6% of Americans celebrate Kwanzaa. 1.6% of Americans. Over 13% of the American population is Black. And only 1.6% of Americans, period, celebrate Kwanzaa. which means that 1.6% of Americans are liars because I believe it is 0%. No, I'm sure that descendants of the race baiter Ron celebrate Kwanzaa. But my point of all this is when you hear leftist zealots and white liberals claiming that Kwanzaa has deep cultural significance and that you're a bigot if you even question its validity, simply know that they are brainwashed or they know the truth and they are lying to you. Kwanzaa was created by a criminal disguised, and not just a criminal who also wanted to sow divisions based on race. But it was a criminal disguised as an intellectual to offer a racially segregated alternative to much more meaningful religious holidays in late December. So celebrate Hanukkah if that's what you do. Celebrate Christmas because those have ties to thousands and thousands of years ago and are not based off your race. They are based off what you believe. If somebody you know genuinely does celebrate Kwanzaa, send them this. Send them this message to know what they're actually celebrating. A holiday created by a torturer, a person who sowed racial divisions, was responsible for the organization that killed Black Panthers, among others. That's what you're celebrating. All disguised as a celebration of African American culture. If you want to actually celebrate African American culture, fast forward to February where it's Black History Month. Because at least that's more genuine and honest. But everybody, we got to take a break here on the radio side of things. I will still be live on YouTube. Look up Speechless with Kev on Google. Like, subscribe, share, and comment. We will be right back with more Speechless. Thanks so much for tuning in.